Hello folks, welcome back to the W Club Decanted series on Macallan. On this episode, episode 2, we are joined by Rachel Walters, Operations Director of the Macallan. I hope you'll find this a charming conversation as Rachel gives us another look at life in the distillery. If you're enjoying the podcast, as always, please do leave us a review and share it with a friend. But more importantly, visit your local whiskey shop or thewhiskyshop.com for all things Macallan. The only thing left to do then is enjoy the show. The W Club Decanted. Operations Manager is your title?
Operations Director.
Apologies.
If you're going to be,
I didn't mean to demote you. Sorry. So an incredibly important role. How long have you been in that role?
Well, I've worked for Macallan for 26 years, which is quite something.
Wow. So straight out of school.
Oh, bless you. Absolutely. I was 6 at the time. No, not at all. I joined Edrington, the Macallan Group. Shortly after university, and I've been here in a number of different roles operationally and through our cask supply chain and engineering ever since, but I've had the privilege of looking after the Macallan estate for 4 years now. And this is me in my happy place.
And so, and what were your roles before that within the company?
So I spent quite a lot of time in Jerez, working with our cask supply chain. Interestingly, at that stage in our journey, it was these small family businesses that sourced casks for us as different entities. And in recent times, you'll be aware that we've actually absolutely bought into those family businesses, so they are now officially part of the company. So a number of years ago, I worked out of Jerez and managed that cask supply chain with the family businesses, which was an absolute joy. Out of Jerez, but then back and forth to Waverley, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and north of Spain and south of France as well, which was terrific. Before that, I had led the engineering team for a while, so quite a technical role. Before that, a lot of time in operations and bottling down in Glasgow. So I've kind of worked my way backwards up the supply chain, I think.
Yeah, well, I was going to say,
from bottle back up to barley field.
You've covered a lot of the kind of aspects to what goes into producing the Macallan as well. So it makes you probably obviously the most qualified person for the role you're currently doing, which is to oversee pretty much everything in that distillery now. So obviously from the visitor experience to the actual distilling and warehousing, everything. How many people does that involve, and what's a day in the life like?
Oh goodness!
As an operations director?
So 265 of us here on the estate, and you're absolutely right. We have everything here. My cheesy expression is we have from the barley field to the bar. So yes, it's everything's here, which I think is super, because you see that connectivity of quality and the production and the craftsmanship and the attention to detail and the way we make our whiskey is what makes the brand what it is. And you can't split between production operations and brand. They're the same thing. Yeah. It's our brand home. It's like I think champagne the champagne region. We've been talking about the maison for a long time. I think in Scotland we almost don't have an equivalent for the French word maison, but that's what this is, our home. Absolute home. Yeah. So typical day for me, as I say, which is one of the many reasons I love my job, is the variety. So a typical day for me often involves a mixture of guest-facing, hosting, hospitality, which is an absolute joy, and some quite technical operation. I might be talking about, we're not long completed our barley harvest, so we'll be talking about the barley yield. We'll be talking about our planting plan and our agricultural plan on the fields for next year. I'll be working technically with the distillation team on engineering, repairs and maintenance schedules, and I'll be working with the environment team on our river management and so on. So a huge variety, from the very quite technical right through to just having a lovely time enjoying a dram.
And you mentioned the barley-to-bar. We were talking to Bex about the acorn-to-glass.
Is it?
I prefer barley-to-bar, to be honest. So speaking of barley, and obviously we have touched on maturation to an extent, but in terms of your production output, in terms of the type of stills you have here and the
what your alcohol output is in terms of litre, volume litre per year. Can you tell maybe some of our listeners about that?
Sure. So I'm probably not going to give you a precise number of the litres that we produce. I mean, we're a super brand, and we're a brand that's growing, but we're by no means the biggest single malt distillery in this part of Speyside, let alone elsewhere in Scotland. But what's curious about us, and we use the word curious a lot, is our spirit stills are really, really small, amongst the smallest in the industry. So we need quite a few of them to get any volume out at all. So that really talks about our style of distillation, which speaks to that kind of rich, fruity, cereal-led new make spirits, which is lots of copper content and a short, small still that allows those really complex spirits to condense into the condensers rather than your very long giraffe swan necks, which are absolutely super as well, but make a very, very different type of light floral spirit. So yes, our malt work very closely with Simpson's Malt down in Berwick upon Tweed. They do our malting for us, but with our Macallan growers group. Obviously, we have farmers that we've been working with for years and years and years and years that grow specifically for Macallan, so we can trace our barley. We grow, as I'm saying, we grow quite a bit here on the estate, but not all we need. So we can trace all our barley right down to the farm and keep a track of working closely with the farmers and exactly how it's growing, and the varieties and their agricultural methods, and then bring that through a distillery.
Marvellous. And in terms of, obviously you said you've been in this current role 4 years now, so that would be post the new distillery.
Absolutely.
But you were obviously at the company at the time. So how much that has changed with the new distillery in 2017, and how much that is consistent with what it would have been like before?
Yeah, there's a real consistency in how we make our liquid. There's a red thread of quality standards. Just to give one example of many, I mentioned the curiously small stills. They are the same. If you go to Forsyth Coppersmiths, they will show you lock and key, because it's obviously a secret, but they will show you the exact specification of Macallan stills that they've been making for, well, since records began. They've got records of stills they've made for us that are more than 100 years old that are exactly the same and exactly the same copper. So some things do not ever change. The same thing goes with the casks and the sherry casks. That's a red thread. So what has changed, I think, is almost much more to do with our the guests we're hosting here. The biggest change, I think, in the past year or two for us is the opening of our Time Spirit restaurant, and thinking of the estate as a home of great gastronomy as well as the home of great whiskey. So that's new and great fun. So I would say the changes are much more about how we enjoy and appreciate our whiskey here, and rather than how we make it. I think another thing I could talk about that we have really been working on hard in more recent times is our regenerative agriculture, and looking at rewilding the estate and really focusing on our protecting endangered species. So that's been a massive focus. I'm not saying that's brand new, but we're working harder on it these days than we ever have done.
And how big is the estate?
It is 487 acres.
That's great. It's
a good size. Yeah.
And in terms of, it must have been a very, just go back to the old distillery, because I'd be curious to what you're doing with it now. I presume it's still there, the old distillery.
Absolutely, it's still there. We're working on a programme that quite long term to repurpose it. So we're going to keep the old original still house exactly intact as a wonderful archive. One of the, going back to my point about the history and heritage of this estate, what's super cool is to look back on these old maps from the 18th century and see on the Ordnance Survey map the Macallan still house in that location. So I just feel it's part of what we offer. It's part of our heritage. We're going to leave it there, but it's not going to come back into service. Yeah. But it's a lovely. The copper's still there. The stills are still there, and it would be lovely just to keep that as a tribute to our past. Some of the other old distillery buildings we're looking at repurposing and refurbishing at the moment as we're growing as a team and bringing more and more people to the estate. We need. I'd love to expand our space for the team. So rather than new builds, we're working on a restoration plan. But some of the old original distillery buildings will be office space, sample room space, laboratory space, this kind of thing. But that's quite a long-term project. But that's like Macallan takes many years to make. I have quite a long-term estate plan, so nothing necessarily happens tomorrow, but it's a plan for the future.
And I suppose have you noticed it must have been incredibly brave, the right word, thing for the brand to do, to kind of decide to move to open a new distillery, because obviously it's I don't know, it's obvious, but I imagine, is there ever a risk that it changes the spirit or the nature of the brand? I mean, I imagine we haven't, as a consumer, haven't tried any of the new liquid yet, if it's only been in production for...
Well, I have a wee story about that, because yes, we have. But actually, I think what makes it look dramatic is the fact that we chose to go for quite a statement architectural building as we expanded, that makes that's quite a different modern feel. That's super exciting. But in actual fact, lots and lots and lots of distilleries in Speyside and across Scotland have expanded and grown over the years, and I can think, I mean, I'm not going to talk about my colleagues elsewhere in the whisky industry, because that's their stories, not mine, but I can think of some super brands very, very nearby when I've got, and I call them colleagues, not competitors, where they've expanded still houses and put new pods on and things like that. It's exactly the same as what we've done. I just think ours looks a bit different because it's maybe 20 yards away, and the building's quite different. I think my point here is that and this isn't a very romantic answer, it's more of an engineering answer, that copper wears out, and valve and pump and tank specifications change, and engineering methodologies improve, and so we're constantly, you keep that red thread consistency as I'm talking about the actual size of the stills, but you'll be constantly upgrading and changing equipment, so nobody will be using the exact same copper that they were 30 years ago.
Of course, yeah.
They'll upgrade them all the time. So actually, our distillery is not as different in terms of the process of making the liquid as it looks. The building's different, the view's different, and the environment's different, but the actual the SCADA systems and are different, but the layout, the heat exchangers is different, but the actual stills and the mash tun and the processes are exactly the same. And I think my point is that's what the whole industry does.
No, 100%. That makes perfect sense. Speaking of the whole industry, we get this question a lot at the whisky shop, which is the fact that we're here in beautiful Speyside, and you're very much a Speyside brand, but the bottle does say Highland single malt. So we do get asked which region officially is the Macallan, and how would you answer that question to our listeners?
So I would answer that question to say that the terminology of Highland is the original one. The terminology Speyside is much, much more modern. So when we started as a business 201 years ago, when we had our license to distill, this region was Highland. So that's what we still use. Back in 1824, people didn't talk about Speyside. So the term Speyside is a much, much more modern term. So it's absolutely fine, it's right, there's nothing wrong with calling it Speyside whisky, but we just choose to use the term Highland as a nod to our heritage, because that's what we were at the beginning. At the beginning, we were a Highland single malt, so we still call ourselves a Highland single malt. But
if you were, would you be categorised by most shops or brands, or as a Speyside whisky very much, or would you the other way around?
I mean, I think it's a matter of choice. I think you're absolutely right. The way a whisky aficionado would like to think of Scotch, they think of a Speyside, they think of a Lowland, they think of an Islay. So the Speyside is a meaningful term to a modern whisky drinker. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I mean, of course we're a Speyside malt. We celebrate with the Speyside Whisky Festival every year with pride. But originally we were Highland single malt, so that's what we put in the bottle.
That's an excellent answer, and it's maybe a silly question in some ways, but it does come up. And even when you Google, if you type in Macallan into Google, when it auto-fills, the first thing it auto-fills is a Highland. Well, actually, first thing it auto-fills is something like, is the Macallan good? And then the next one is like, is Macallan Highland or Speyside? So it's obviously something that gets Googled a lot as well. Is there something in terms of your enormous role here at the Macallan that maybe listeners would be surprised by? Is there something that you do that people might go, I never thought that would be something that Rach would do in her role?
I think when I talk to people, when I welcome people here, normally what I end up talking about is that diversity, that they actually wouldn't think that the job of running the world's finest single malt, not that I'm biased, would also involve looking after a small farm or looking after a cooperage or looking after a world-class restaurant. But I think particularly what I love when we welcome guests here, when people come, is them surprised about the extent of the estate and the nature. That just thinking of where we're sitting today, that we have our own fishing beat, and the breadth of time people can come and spend here. You have a lovely time in the distillery itself and look at the stills and the distillation process, but actually realize that, I'm using the phrase again, barley-to-bar, that actually they can explore the entire end-to-end process of making the Macallan on our estate is from the cooperage is a place that people love.
A few moments later.
Perfect. Apologies, we had some technical difficulties
Not
there.
at all.
So you were mentioning about the fishing. If you want to pick up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, you asked me what people were surprised when they came here. I mean, I think the Spey itself, it's a mighty river, and when we talk about Speyside whiskies, actually very few distilleries are literally on the Spey. Speyside whiskies are often sourcing from tributaries, like the Livet or the Fiddick. The fact that we're actually on the River Spey, sourcing our water from boreholes in the Spey, is great fun. So Spey is a very famous, wonderful fishing river, and so we do a lot of work supporting the Atlantic Salmon Trust and working with the Spey Fisheries Board and looking after the species. So that's a very special place, and a lot when people come to visit us, they love spending time down here.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's just magical.
Yeah. For anyone listening, we're literally right by the Spey as we chat, so it's absolutely stunning. Fastest flowing river in Scotland, I hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned the farm there. We passed some Highland coos on the way down, and I think there was some sheep. Were they Texels or?
Oh goodness me! Don't ask. The Highland coos. The Highland coos are part of our family. The sheep we have borrowed from a neighbouring farmer. Part of our regenerative plan, the field they're in is a set aside field this year. We're going to leave it out of barley, so we've got it with clover at the moment, and the farmer's helping us out, keeping the soil health in good nick by putting a sheep in for a season. So it's a lovely thing what we do, working with the local community as well. So yes, I'm afraid they're not my sheep, so I couldn't tell you the breed, but they're very cute and they're very happy in our set aside clover field.
Marvellous. And yourself, do you live far from the distillery? Or?
No, just a village nearby, 20 minutes away. Love it. Home. Super part of the world.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time so far. We're going to come to the questions we ask everyone, the quick fire finish.
Sure.
So the first one is your favourite whiskey in the Macallan range, and your favourite whiskey that's not owned by Edrington, basically.
Okay. So, bold statement, I'm saying my favourite whiskey is a Macallan 25-year-old. It's very special. It's a special occasion dram, but one for drinking. Oh my goodness, it's so complex but so drinkable, and it's just a great one to toast and celebrate with. So I love a Macallan 25-year-old. In terms of other brands, I have a soft spot for Bushmills on the north coast of Ireland. I think it's a cracking location, super brand, super dram, and I'm very fond of Bushmills as a place.
Very good. And when you're doing your role here at Macallan, or if you're at home having a Macallan, what's your whiskey music to pair with the whiskey?
Music to pair with whiskey. I'm quite a traditional jazz fan. I'm going to say whiskey and Miles Davis. Kind of blue.
I can really see that working. Yeah.
Very good Friday night experience.
That's excellent. And your earliest memory of whiskey?
Earliest memory of whiskey is on my grandfather's knee. Sunday afternoons after Sunday lunch, whiskey, and I cannot remember how old I was when I'd climb onto Grandad's knee and he'd have his whiskey by his side. But very young. I feel like I've known whiskey all my life. Yeah, marvellous. Well, another excellent answer. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time. And maybe we'll visit again. We would love to have you in future. Brilliant. Thank you. Super.